Thank you for joining us today. We've got a great webinar for you today. It's the last in our research series titled Learner Recruitment, Strategies to Get Learners to Enroll in Adult Basic Education Programs. And I know this is something that a lot of programs struggle with across the country. Our presenters today, Clymer and Shannon Frey, are going to talk about the research and give you guys some strategies for how to get students into your programs. So we are recording this webinar. Next week, we will send out a recording of the webinar along with the slideshow that Carol and Shannon have put together. We'll send a link to the research brief. We'll include a transcript of the chat, and you will get a certificate for attending. Since we've got a pretty small group today, we're going to ask that you use the chat to introduce yourself. If we're sharing links with you, we'll post them into the chat. You can use the chat to ask questions of the presenters or the group, or you can raise your hand to ask a question, and we will call on you just to kind of manage the audio traffic so we're not talking over each other. You see the instructions for how to raise your hand. So we'll call on you, you'll unmute yourself, ask your question, and then mute back when you're done. So we are taking a break from our webinars over the summer and into the fall because ProLiteracy's conference is coming up in September. We're having a face-to-face conference in San Antonio, Texas on the Riverwalk, September 20th through 22nd. Registration's now open. Our early bird registration ends August 13th. We've got some great presentations for you. So if you're looking for something to do in September and feel like traveling, this is going to be a great place to be. A little bit about kind of how the webinar is going to go today. So Alisa Belzer is going to talk about the research briefs, what they are. She's going to introduce our two presenters today. They're going to do a kind of an overview of the research that they did on, the research that they did on learner recruitment. And then we'll have an opportunity to ask questions. We're going to divide up into some small groups and kind of discuss what are some things that you've already been trying related to the research and what are some things you're interested in, and then we're going to come back and debrief. But Alisa will tell you a little bit more about that in just a minute. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to turn things over to Alisa Belzer. Alisa?
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on learner recruitment. Thank you for coming, and thank you so much to ProLiteracy for hosting and organizing. As Todd said, my name is Alisa Belzer. I'm a professor at Rutgers University, and my role here is to kind of be the moderator. And the reason I'm in that role is because I was the editor of the research brief series, which I'll tell you about in one moment. But first, I'd like to introduce our presenters today. So first we have Dr. Clymer. She's co-director of the Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy and the Goodling Institute for Research in Family Literacy at the College of Education at Penn State University. Dr. Clymer has over 45 years of experience implementing and evaluating programs to improve the education and employment prospects of adult education learners and their families. As a senior program director at Public-Private Ventures in Philadelphia, she participated in the design and implementation of professional development projects and large-scale evaluations and outcome studies related to performance benchmarking, employment retention, sectoral employment, out-of-school youth, and college access. As the Director of Literacy and Workforce Development at El Paso Community College, previous to that, her work focused on adult education, workplace, and family literacy. She has also authored numerous publications and made hundreds of conference presentations. Welcome, Dr. Clymer. Dr. Shannon Frey, our other presenter, is the coordinator for Guided Study Groups program at Penn State University in University Park, Pennsylvania. Dr. Frey has worked with adult learners in many capacities over the years, and she completed her PhD in adult education from Penn State University in 2020. Congratulations. Her doctoral research focused on the notion of success from the perspective of adult learners. She currently is responsible for training and supervising leaders of peer-led study groups that help students achieve greater success in their coursework. Her role provides opportunities for her interests in peer-led instruction, educational equity, and student-centered pedagogy. She's authored a number of publications and presentations. With that, I did want to just mention to you briefly about the research brief. So Todd, if you could, yeah. So ProLiteracy has brought out a series of 5 research briefs. And then we have run 5 webinars in conjunction, one with each brief. This is our 5th webinar for our 5th brief. They're on the 5 topics you see here, and they're designed to provide practitioners with brief summaries of the research in each of these areas. So if you haven't seen them, I really encourage you to look for them. Of course, the one you're going to hear about today, the presentation will give you a flavor, the brief will give you a bit more detail, but also for the other 4 topics, if they're of interest to you, they can be found on the ProLiteracy website. Todd just posted the link and it's here in the slide. They're a really good introduction to each one of these topics and will give you a sense of what the research base tells us about each of these topics. So just a word about how this will run. Todd already gave you the sense of the agenda. But the thing to know is while our presenters are presenting, please feel free to post your questions in the chat, or you could just raise your hand as Todd showed you how to do. We will take questions at the end of the presentation. After that, as Todd said, we're going to go into small groups. But I really do encourage you, I know the temptation is to leave at that point after you've heard the presentation. I really encourage you to stay to discuss with colleagues who are here with us about what you've heard, what resonates with what you're already doing, and what's something new you want to try. I think we have put in that discussion time really to encourage you to think about what are you going to take away from this, and also to hear a little bit from each other and not just our presenters. So I do encourage you to stay and also then to share your discussion in the debriefing afterwards. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carol and Shannon, and we'll sit back and enjoy the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're looking forward to talking with you, and our hope today is to share some strategies and some tools for you as you think about recruitment for your programs and develop recruitment campaigns. Before we start, just a quick acknowledgement that a lot of the research that we're talking about, actually all of it was pre-COVID, and we know things have changed over the past year. So that definitely will affect recruitment and strategies, and we're going to talk about that more later, and we'd also love to hear your thoughts on that during the discussion. So I'm going to start by highlighting some of the information we found in the literature, and the goal is for us to kind of give you a framework of what the research has shown us and give you some questions and some things to consider as you're developing your own recruitment strategies and campaigns. Awesome. So one of the things we saw, the main points, was the importance of knowing your target population. As you're learning who your population is, things you can ask are, who are the learners? Who are the potential learners who want to be or could want to be involved in your program? What geographical information do you know about them? What demographic information do you know about them? What other things are helpful for you as you're thinking, how do we get people involved in our programs? Another question is thinking about, what are the learners' motivations and goals? Do they have similar goals? Is there a common goal for a lot of the population? Is it really varied throughout the people who might be involved? Knowing that information can really help provide a background for how you would want to recruit, who you would want to recruit, and different strategies that you can use. So along with knowing who the people are in the target population, knowing potential participation barriers is also something that came out of the research that is really valuable. So are there things that are holding back a lot of the learners? Jobs, geographical location, timing of class programs, all of that. Asking these things about the specific target population for your program can help you have a better idea of how that can influence who might join the program and who might be prevented from joining. Along with that, are there support services that would be helpful for the general population? For example, mental health. If mental health concerns are present for a large part of the population, that may be something that as you're recruiting, you want to address or provide resources or partner with other programs to help potential learners know that this could be something that could be addressed through their program. Apart from knowing who the potential learners are, knowing the target community is also a valuable part of any kind of recruitment campaign. So asking, what do we know about the community? Who is in the community? Who wants to be part of this? Are there concerns that affect the whole community? For example, there could be an environmental concern that a lot of people in the community are, it's on their mind, they really want to be involved with it. Asking those kinds of questions can help you focus your recruitment and also help you know the community better to better engage the students who could come to your program. Along with that, asking who are your community partners? Are there people who want to partner with you in the community? Are there other organizations, parallel programs, businesses, libraries, all of those? Kind of having a comprehensive list of the people who could partner with you can also help you reach more people in recruitment and help you develop a strategy that can include people from all sorts of different areas and parts of the community. So another thing that seemed really important was the importance of word of mouth. People come to programs and leave programs, and a way that you can get word out really well for your program is to have these connections between learners and potential learners. If there are people in your program now who are really happy with it and are finding a lot of benefit from the program, then how can you partner with those people to get the word out to other people they know, spread the word, and help them use the people who are part of the program to help with recruitment? Also, a question to ask is kind of a program assessment type question. So is the program that you're providing high quality? Is it meeting the needs of the people in the community, of the target population? As you ask these questions, you could see maybe where there are gaps, where you could change some things to help recruitment, or where things are going really well, and you want to advertise that to people to help draw more people into the programs. So Carol's going to share some practical tips and some other ideas with all of you now.
Okay, and Todd, this slide is animated, so you can just click through it because I think you need to see the whole slide to kind of get the picture. And one thing as Todd's doing that, I really encourage you to read the brief if you haven't done it already, because a lot of the questions that Shannon was presenting, they also have kind of information on how to get that information, like doing focus groups or surveys or ways to find out what you need to know related to those questions. So one of the first things that is really important is knowing the different kinds of motivators that are driving your target population, and you would want to use these motivators to inform your recruitment materials, presentations, and your messages. For example, if somebody is goal-oriented and they really want to get a job or get their high school diploma, then of course that's something that you really need to emphasize that you're going to help them for. That's a benefit to them. Others may be, activity-oriented. They want to get out of the house or they want to meet friends. Others are motivated by just really liking to learn or wanting to advance their employment skills. So appealing to that group, or in terms of your messaging, is really important. And many of our learners want to change their lives. You know, they want to get more money. So letting them know how much money could be made as a result of getting their high school diploma, or they want to improve themselves or change careers, and sharing how your program will help them do that is really critical. And it's not just like you can't get all of this on a flyer, but if you know your population, you can, you know, appeal to the ones that are the most important to your population. So just a few more tips on effective recruitment, and these are all based on, you know, the research. It's really important to have a plan and to monitor your plan routinely. You plan, evaluate, and plan. And a little bit later, we've developed a tool, like kind of a recruitment plan, that you can use to, you know, map out your messaging and your different recruitment strategies that you're going to be using. You also, as Shannon said, you know, want to maintain relationships with other agencies that have the target population or come in contact with the target population, who can make referrals to you. And, you know, I think what's really important, this from the top down and bottom up, you don't want to just have one person at the agency where you've have a relationship. You really want to have a relationship with who's in charge of the agency, so they can, you know, instruct the people that work in the agency that it's really important to make referrals to you, and then also to have that bottom up contact, so the people who do make referrals to you are very familiar with your program and who might make a good match for it, and they can talk about it intelligently and do that handoff to you. That's really, really important. And the other reason why it's important to have the bottom up strategies and approaches is because there's a lot of turnover often. So somebody might leave and have all the information. You want to make sure everybody knows about it. Next slide, please. So it's also important to use a lot of different types of recruitment strategies, not just one or the other. And, you know, that's because of what we were saying, different motivations. Your audience has different needs and interests. And, you know, they, you know, will respond to different ways that your information is delivered. So some people, those who have a motivation of wanting to meet people, they may be ones who attend presentations. And you need to do presentations to you know, others at agencies that you're going to refer to, you know, that you're going to use for referrals. It's great to have different events where you can give a lot of information. Flyers and posters are always important. Continually putting them up, having a list of where you're putting them, going to check and see if anyone is taking them down, or the information down, or taking it with them. And then, of course, different kinds of targeted information. And we can't say this enough, capitalize on word of mouth. The power of one. In one of our programs, which was a new program, one individual recruited 8 different people once she found that the program was really meeting her needs. And if people, this is really related to that high quality research, having a program that's high quality. If you don't have one that's meeting their needs, they'll go. People talk with their feet. And then make sure, this is collecting information at recruitment for planning purposes and evaluation is very important, that you get information when you're enrolling somebody in the program about how they learned about the program. So establish your visibility is really important, and do it all the time. Recruitment never should stop. You should always be have an ongoing cycle of recruitment. You know, at events, you know, it's really great. I don't know how many you can do. This is, as Shannon said, pre-COVID. You can't really have an open house. You couldn't have an open house now, but maybe a great thing to do once you're face to face is have an open house, welcome everybody back, and show that you've all gotten through the pandemic. Making presentations at job fairs and one-stop events, social service gatherings, other kinds of education events. We go to our high school to recruit parents of high school students and public school students. And then, of course, posting flyers in busy places like, discount stores, laundromats, the car wash. Sometimes people waiting on the car wash line can look at a flyer. And then here are some ideas for establishing your online visibility, ones that became more important, I'm sure, during the pandemic. We started to do webinars with for our partners about the services we provide, and we'll continue to do those because they're, everyone can come to those a little bit easier sometimes than they can come to a face-to-face, and you can schedule a lot more of them and at different times because they're a little bit easier. That it doesn't replace the face-to-face, but it's really important to do it in addition to meetings that are in person. And then make sure you have webinars and informational meetings for the staff who work in the program. So as I said before, they know what you do and how to talk about the program, and that, it's personal. Have an electronic flyer that you can send to all partners or to your mailing list if you don't have one of those already. Again, if you developed one during the pandemic, I would keep on doing those, getting that information out. Many of you probably already have a Facebook page or a Twitter account, LinkedIn, and just posting information to those regularly. And don't forget your own social networks. They're really important as well, getting information out to your friends. The power of one. Don't forget the power of one. And of course, your message is really key. On flyers, it's really important to have readable information, more white space than text, translations if you serve different languages, and if you don't have a name for your program, you might want to consider a program name to establish your own identity. Like we have the Career Pathways and Family Pathways program, as opposed to just a GED program. Or just the name of your organization. Have some information about what your program entails, but keep it simple and to the point, not many words. And then always try to have material for two audiences, your target population, and then your referral agencies. So your referral agency information can be a little bit more in depth because they need to have a little bit more information. And then, consider that you put something on your recruitment materials for what's in it for me, or what are you going to lose out on if you don't enroll. There's some research in the research brief about how important that is, that people respond to losing out on something. And then, this is a sample of our flyer. And we started using, this wasn't during the pandemic, but Alisa told me the other day that, and she did some more research of people using a QR code during the pandemic for enrollment. So, they can just, put their phone next to that QR code and register for our classes. And that's a really good thing to do now. And, always, I think, because it's easy and fast, especially for younger learners. But this is just an example of, how we're trying to get information out that's easy and easy to read, doesn't have too much text. We have the, what they might be interested in up on the right-hand corner. We have a little bit about, what's in it for them, what are the motivators in the lower left-hand corner. enrolling now. Just easy, straightforward information. And so here, Todd's going to put in the chat a link to this tool. It's a recruitment action plan that we've developed. And it kind of goes through, the questions and the information that we talked about that was really important. That's based on the research. Just regular information about your program. This is something that you would want to use with your staff in terms of making this plan, thinking about the target audience, what does it take to enroll in your program, how are you going to find out about different learners, just basic information about the class and where it is, information about how much money you have for marketing, if you're going to use photos, like gathering photos to use in a brochure. For us, it was this really long time process. So that's kind of why we have that information there. Then it has information related to how you'll get enrollment information to them, whether or not you're going to make presentations, who's doing it, when are you going to do it, who are you going to make those presentations to, another section on flyers and whether or not you'll do them electronically or with print, whether or not you're going to do any advertising. We typically don't do a whole lot of advertising, but we did more this year in our program. We made ads for a free newspaper because like a local community paper, because we thought that more and more people were reading that paper because it was free and they were at home, and so we put some ads in that paper. I think it worked out pretty well. And then any other marketing things that you are going to do. This is kind of the last section. So that's all we have for our presentation, and I don't see any questions in the chat. But we're going to turn it back to Alisa, and she's going to lead a discussion with the group.
Okay, thanks so much, Carol and Shannon. So I'd like to open it up for questions. I see I agree, no one posted questions in the chat, but I'm wondering if anyone has one. And in the meantime, I wonder if you can say more about kind of assessing what problems might be getting in the way of recruitment, or something about helping programs helping themselves to sort of get off the spot of, gosh, our recruitment's not going so well, or let's just say we don't have enough students. Now, how to get from there to really getting to this action plan, like what might get programs to really get systematic about it?
Well, I think one thing is making sure that you're collecting that information at intake. Like, how did you find out about the program? And then, having a list of all the different ways that you're trying to get information to individuals, and just tracking that data and seeing which ones are working. So that might be one way to do it. I think the other thing too is like doing a focus group. And that's something that's in the research brief, gathering students, not gathering students, but, asking, 5-10 students to, a set of questions about, how did you learn about the program? What could we do to get more, learners into our program? How are our showing them the recruitment materials? Do these materials, speak to you? Kind of trying to figure out, like, do you have any friends that you think might want to come to the program but aren't coming to the program, or family? Why might that be?
Carol, it sounds like so much of what you're saying is really letting the students help you know what's going to work best.
Yes, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that is a really important part of the research. It's like students identify other students, and they need to be a really important part of your recruitment strategy. And maybe that we didn't say that enough. It's that power of one with the students.
Well, you said that, but also all the things you just said really have to do with helping the students inform you. So a couple of questions have come in. The first one is, I'm curious what research findings surprised you or caught you unaware.
Shannon, do you have anything? I know what I want to say, but I'm just doing a lot of talking, so you can go ahead.
Okay. I think one of the things that surprised me, not necessarily for what it said, but for how much it came out in research, was the importance of community partners. And so not just relying on yourself and your word of mouth, but like helping expand and getting other organizations and people involved. And that seems like something that makes sense when I read it, but it came out quite frequently in a lot of the literature that we reviewed. So the amount of the importance placed on that, I guess, was something that I found really interesting.
Great. Carol, do you have one you want to add?
Yeah, I think that I don't think it's any surprise, and maybe this relates to what you were asking too about, like, how do you dig deep into what are some of your recruitment issues and challenges, but it's like how important the high quality program is, and the fact that if our students have a lot of barriers and your program isn't meeting their needs, they're not going to do your program come to your program, as opposed to be tired after work and come to your program. So I really think that's the one that I think is really an important one to take into account, and to make sure you try to address, do you really have a program that's meeting people's needs, and they'll choose it over their lives that are very complicated and full.
Great. Our next question, I'm going to combine the next two questions actually, because they both have to do with recruitment in the time of COVID, and whether or not you were able to find, I know you touched on this about things you could do during COVID, but anything further about strategies for retention in virtual classes, and also, well, retention is really a different topic, but recruiting during virtual classes and sort of accommodating the shift. How has that shaped your thinking about recruitment?
Well, we will always do, as I said, we'll always do the webinars for our referral partners, so that we can, instead of having like an event for them or a meeting for them that's face-to-face, we'll do an informational webinar, and we'll do it frequently. We'll continue to send out electronic flyers and send out text messages. Those are things that we did, more than we did before. I think we were more, we've really done, and again, this relates to your other question too, Alisa, we've been much more evaluative about our website and how people are getting information on our website. And we changed a lot of how the information that was on our website. So I don't think we had a class schedule before on our website because it changed too frequently, but now we're always having the class schedule, and all the information related to COVID is on our website. We tried to make it more appealing, more announcements, more features of students learning. So those are some ways that we have upped our game in terms of recruitment. That said, recruitment was really, really hard during COVID. Our numbers are down, and I know they are in many, many places across the country. So,
but I do hear you saying the bottom line in for virtual learning is to do more recruitment virtually.
yeah,
But the recruitment style has to match the delivery format.
correct.
And so you have to up your virtual tools to do better virtual recruitment. So,
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much. We're going to now let the participants engage a little bit more. So because we're a relatively small group, we thought, Todd, are we staying together? Is that the plan? I think.
Yeah, we can. I think we should just stay together.
Okay. All right. So I wonder if you can put the slide back up that has the discussion questions.
I can.
So at this point, I'm going to invite you to raise your hand, which you do that by going to the reaction button in the bottom right, as Todd said. We're going to discuss both of the questions here, which is what's something that you heard that you've tried or that resonated with something that sort of fits with your approach. It would be really nice just to get a little bit of sharing in, and then we'll switch gears after we hear from some people about some things you're interested in trying. So if you'd like to be brave and start off, we'd love to hear, and I'm sure other participants would love to hear from you about some things you've tried with regard to recruitment, either that you heard about or that you didn't hear about, but that has been really effective. So let's hear from you all. Okay, I see a hand. It is Nicholas. Nicholas, if you could unmute yourself, we'd love to hear what your experience has been.
Sure. Hello. So I mentioned that I'm at Oakton Community College, which is in Skokie, Illinois. And so our ESL and literacy program for adults is kind of a community, kind of like a community class, like people can enroll if they want. It's a free course. And one thing that's really been helping us is that some of the people who work on our program are themselves second language speakers, that they may have moved to the United States from somewhere else. My assistant is originally from Poland, so she speaks Polish, and she has been able to reach out to different people that she knows who are interested in English classes that they didn't know about the course. She kind of has let people in her community know, and we've been getting some people from that. So I guess being mindful of like who you may personally know and who you could reach out to, or if people you're working with are part of communities that would benefit from the program, you can have them reach out to people they know in person.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great example, both of the power of one and of looking for partners. So who are your natural, almost like natural partners within your program? What communities are they in, and how could you leverage those relationships? Thank you. Could someone else share a strategy that they've found to be successful? Come on, be brave.
So I didn't do recruitment myself. I was working as a volunteer instructor, and we found that a lot of our recruitment came from the elementary and middle school students that were involved in our after school programs, and then parents would like automatically connect with the citizenship classes and the ESL classes. So it was really a flip from the children getting involved in programs and then the parents wanting that need as well to get involved in the programs in the community.
Thank you, Erica. That's a great example of going out into the community, maybe not going directly to the population you're trying to get to, but to leverage connections and relationships across potential audiences. Thanks, that's a great one. How about one more before we switch to the other question? Go ahead.
Alisa, this is Todd. I actually have
Oh.
a question for Carol and Shannon, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
So when I was in a local program in Memphis, we did a student recruitment campaign, and we did a lot of the things they mentioned about motivations and, what am I going to get out of it and things like that. And then we designed a bunch of messaging around that. We ran that by our student committee, and their reaction to that was like that those kind of checklist things didn't resonate with them. And we wound up involving them in the messaging, and their messaging was more around kind of describing what it was like before they came into the literacy program. I'm in a dark room. I was kind of all alone, blah, blah, blah. And then when I learned to read or improve my reading, doors opened, lights went on, that kind of imagery. And it was a really effective campaign. I wondered if you saw in the research anything about like that. I don't know if it's like authenticity or that more emotional kind of appeal and kind of an authentic emotional appeal coming from the perspective of a student, or things about the effectiveness of having students involved in developing those messages.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Todd. I can start, and Carol, please add. I think what we saw in the research, in the literature, did include involving students. Now, the kind of appeal that you described sounds really great and really effective, but it wasn't something that was strongly represented in published literature. So I think that could be like a very interesting thing to look into in the future too, because for different organizations, because as you're saying that, it seems I can see the strength of that and how that could be really effective, but that's not something that's been published on a lot.
Yeah, and I agree, and I'll just add. I mean, I think it's something I think we all know about testimonials. It sounds like that's a really important part of what you learned from students, that them not just saying why a program benefited from them, but their own experience about enrollment, if you will. And so, I mean, I think that is one of the reasons maybe why the word of mouth works so good, so well.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of word of mouth, I think, hands down, is the best way to recruit people. And so getting your students involved in doing that is really critical. And so what you just said, Todd, having, then talk to other students is important. They could be at the webinars if you're going to do the webinars, and be at events, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the other, coming back to the point that was made earlier, and you're underlining it, Carol, is, the content of the testimonials is going to depend on the particular students and the circumstances and the program and the population and all that. But the idea that you ask students for feedback on materials that you had developed just goes back again to this idea of students are not only your best kind of ambassadors in terms of word of mouth, like Carol just said, but also your most important coaches, advisors, critics, reviewers of the work that you do to create recruitment materials. And again, it's another way in which learners can and should play such a key role in recruitment. I mean, we just keep naming in different formats over and over different ways that learners can really take the lead. So those are some really helpful suggestions that people had of things they've already tried. I would like to hear from people about things you heard about, something maybe that was new from the research that Shannon and Carol shared, that is something you're interested in trying. And I think the idea here is, virtually stand up and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to try it, because that makes it more likely that you will try it. But also, this is a great opportunity to ask Carol and Shannon if they have any feedback on how you might actually enact what you're thinking of in your particular context. So who would like to say something raise your hand or just unmute your mic, that's fine, that you'd like to try, that you haven't yet tried, that you're interested in, and what challenges do you maybe foresee that we could give you feedback on? I want to invite you to be bold because this is the way you're most likely to actually use what you heard today. So we're getting a written comment from Erica. During the pandemic, piloting and expanding a conversation group program via student feedback has been really impactful for me as an instructor and for the students. So this is something you've already tried, Erica. That seems like it's a different way to bring people in than just a traditional class. So maybe that's another strategy, is offering other ways to plug in addition to or instead of maybe temporarily just a traditional class, so a conversation group. And that came about because of student feedback. Thank you for sharing that. Somebody else have something they would like to try that they haven't tried yet? Something that's triggered for you? Okay, we have Nicholas again. Thank you, Nicholas, for being a live wire. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello again. Yeah, I guess what I'm most interested kind of thinking about now is maybe looking at flyers, because we do have, our program has flyers that we do post. As far as I can tell, we posted in libraries at the school, like, public libraries and our school. I'm not sure if we posted at other places, so maybe kind of expanding where, and also maybe thinking about what areas would be best, because this is for the whole district, I suppose, but we may need to look at where students are coming from, like where more potential students are. And then also the flyers themselves are pretty dull. I think it is kind of just school, program name, and it doesn't have any pictures, and it is kind of just a series of bullet points. So I'm thinking that that's fine for giving information out, like a little brochure, but maybe if we could do some kind of alternate design that's a little more kind of catches people's attention, that could go into why people aren't aware about this program that's in their neighborhood and their district. I guess the only challenge would be I don't know who is in charge of that, and I don't know if they would have any interest or funding to do another series of flyers for the places they're at.
Yeah, I mean, flyers are a tried and true kind of marketing strategy that I think programs need to always do. And even during the pandemic, we still put flyers everywhere that people were allowed to go, right? So, car washes, laundromats, at the convenience stores, and then the ones that they let us, not all the businesses will allow you to do it, but a lot of them will. We also, on our flyer, have a type where we put, have you ever seen those flyers for babysitters, at the bottom? They go across and they put the contact information, for the babysitter. Well, contact information for your program, you can rip it off the flyer and then take it, so that they have that contact information. That's a really important thing to do with the flyers. Put them at the referral agencies, put them, like you said it, I think, Nicholas, if you in your intake find out, where they heard about you, you can get some more information about where they're learning about your program and take flyers there too. We don't just put one up too. We try to, have a person that, knows the flyers are there and can keep them so people can take them. The other thing about the photos, we got permission from our learners to, get photos of them, and they are in our flyers. I posted the one with the QR code but I will send to Todd another flyer that we have. I think that's really really a good one. It has, you know, a picture of somebody, a picture of the like 5 or 6 different aspects of our program, and it's students who are involved in those aspects of our program, and it's very, very simple. We did invest in getting our communications department at Penn State to help us design the flyer, and I think that has made a lot of difference. And it, you know, it wasn't as cheap as I would like it to be, but I think that's something that is really important to try to do, is to invest in a high quality design. Is that helpful? Nicholas, is anything, other questions you have that I could?
Yeah, that is kind of helpful. I've been thinking about, because I'm kind of thinking of maybe other places that we could expand and that I could talk to my program director about. And I do like the idea of kind of working with other departments, putting together a flyer, because I don't really have that. I don't really have good design skills on Word or anything, so I don't know what I would do.
I have 2 other suggestions. One is if you have any volunteers in your program, you might look around to see if you have any volunteers who do graphic design or PR marketing kind of work in their real lives, and might be able to maybe take, you know, a period of time either without a learner and volunteer in this way instead, or do this on top of. So know what your if you have volunteers in your program, know what your volunteers' strengths and skills are, and see if you can build on them. And the other thing in terms of figuring out effective places to put flyers, and this goes right back to the point I keep driving about, ask the learners in your programs, not just how they found out about the program, but about the places they go to every day.
That's a great idea.
And ask them, you know, where are places that you know people go to frequently in your neighborhood. You could also ask them, I mean, you might be wasting some flyers that just don't get taken care of, but you could ask them to place flyers at their you know, places of worship, or you know, the local corner store where they run out to get milk or whatever. So again, leveraging learners. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say one more idea too, is like we saw a flyer from another program that was a different kind of program that we really liked, and we kind of riffed off of their design idea. We changed it a whole lot, but you know, finding other flyers you like and then riffing off of that if you don't have funds is gets you a jump start. And Erica said, would a social media page and present be an effective also? Yeah, I think that's something that was on the slides. Like, we have a Facebook page. It's really important, I think, to do that. Sorry, Alisa.
No, I'm sorry. I leaned my head back. Not that I was looking like, oh my gosh. I didn't mean to be signaling with my body language. I'm sorry. I have a brand new cushy chair and I was enjoying it. Yeah, so those are some great suggestions and some good things to think about. We're just about out of time. So I want to say thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you for hanging in during our early technical challenge at the beginning. Thank you to Carol and Shannon, and we hope this is helpful. And do look for the research brief if you haven't seen it yet, just to have you know, a lot of this on paper. Also, I think Todd mentioned he'll be sending these slides out. I do think that some of the practical suggestions that Carol put at the end of this presentation aren't maybe as highlighted in the research brief, because those are more suggestions, not necessarily, they're more like enactments of the research. So they may not be as much in the research brief. I can't quite remember. But anyway, I encourage you to use the slides as a resource and to use the research brief as a resource. So I think that's about it. Thank you for coming. Thank you, everybody.